Wow, awesome. Hello, everyone. Oh, and people up there, hi. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the PAC for our talk today with our honored guest alum. My name is Rich Brown. I am the chair of the Department of Theater and Dance, and it is my great honor to welcome to the stage our, this year, Western Washington University's Alumni Achievement Award winner and the creator of this little TV show called Severance, Dan Erickson.
Hi.
So, Dan, you were a high school student in Olympia, Washington.
Yes, I was.
And
Olympia OHS, 2002.
Any Olympia High School? Olympia High School. Call
Yeah? All right.
And you suddenly got bit by the theater bug, like so many high school students do. And tell us what got you from there to Western to start.
Yeah, well, I started out at Oli as doing the theater department with an interest in acting. And so, you know, I took drama classes all throughout, and but there wasn't really an official, like, playwriting, there weren't really playwriting courses there. There was like a sort of a TV production thing that was pretty ahead of its time, actually, at that time. That was really cool. But in terms of, like, theater, I was very much focused on the acting side of things. I would do, like, I had some friends of mine, and we formed like a little improv group, and we would do, you know, we would go and perform at there was some kind of fundraiser that we did at some point, but it was very, it was very sort of much the normal theater kid experience. Mm-hmm. And what changed was a gentleman who now is a professor right here at Western named Brian Willis.
Right down there. Known as the Raptor of Justice.
You pointed to this guy and I was like, that's not Brian. His hair's not that big. Brian came and basically did a playwriting course for our drama class, through which we were encouraged to come up with like a short like 10-minute play. And I wrote a play about a guy who becomes aware that his life has a narrator, and it's like he can hear the narrator and nobody else can. You know, and I was 16 and I was like, that's brilliant.
And it was brilliant.
I'm playing with the form of theater. But it was very much getting bitten by the bug is a good way to put it. It was immediate that I was like, yeah, this is I love every element of theater. I still love acting. I love doing improv. But this, I think, is my thing.
And then you made this huge mistake and went to another university that wasn't Western.
I'm sorry, Rich.
For 2 years.
I already apologized.
And then you got so smart and decided to come here because Brian was also teaching here at Western at that time.
Yeah.
And so you arrive at Western as a freshman, and kind of walk us through that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, technically I read back as a junior, but yeah, Western freshman. But I came back as a junior and was an English major, actually. I had been a film production major at the other school and realized over the course of it that, like, I really, my favorite part of this is not being out on set so much as just being by myself in a room for 10 hours straight, just writing a story. Yeah. And so I decided I was an English major with a creative writing emphasis, but you know, I still wanted that sort of kick of the live audience and the actual organic relationship that you can have with an audience. And so I was sort of like I was technically an English major, and I love those guys too, but I was over here all the time. Yeah. Like, I was in this building for a great deal of my time here. Yeah. And got involved with a bunch of the student run and faculty run opportunities, like Place for Us, STP. Place for Us seriously was like the start of everything for me, because it was like, you know, once a couple times a year, I could take whatever, like, the weirdest, most outlandish idea was that I had, and I could put it up, and because, you know, there wasn't a great deal of money involved, it was just a lot of, like, very passionate people who wanted to be there. I was never told like that's too weird, you can't do that. And so it was just a really great way to start flexing my muscles. And it's like, with comics, they talk about doing the small clubs, and that was my version of the small clubs. But it was a very unique thing. I will say I've been to a couple other schools over my life, and there was never anything else quite like that.
Yeah, and for those not in the theater department who are here today, STP is Student Theater Productions, which is a student-run theater club that produces a whole season of shows that runs parallel with the main stage season that's directed by faculty and guest artists. So that's student designers, directors, student writers, and an opportunity for students to create new work and other produced work and add their voice to the cultural conversation, which is something that we really train our students on here with playwriting, devising, and having these opportunities with all these different clubs to take swings and really just start getting their work up in front of people. So Student Theater Productions plays for us, still going strong today, and that's literally where Dan got his start.
Yeah. Dead Parents Society too.
Thank you. Say more about that, please. Dan was one of the artistic directors of Parrots.
I was in by far their least successful year they've ever had. I remember there was at least one show where there were like more people on stage than in the audience. That was a good feeling. And then like the year after I left, they blew up and started winning national awards and stuff.
Yep.
So, but the groundwork
You had done, exactly.
I planted the seeds.
Thank you.
And then they grew, and I'm happy.
Thank you. Yeah, they literally got first in the nation in the College Improv Festival in Chicago, and then the next year they got second, and that came from your work.
Yes,
Okay.
I take full credit.
You should.
Allison Loers will try to take credit.
She's here somewhere, and
she's somewhere.
You two can arm wrestle
No.
for it earlier.
No.
Meet me outside, Dan.
Oh,
Nice.
You want this? You want this? Yeah.
So you're doing lots of Parrots, become the AD of that,
Yes.
writing a lot of short plays for Plays for Us and SCP, and then you wrote this one play called Convention while you're a student here. Let's talk about that, and then we'll move forward into post-Western time.
Yeah, so that was, I had written a play in part through, I was taking Brian's theater playwriting courses, and over the course of that, was sort of developing this full-length play that was about four guys who were in an office, and they sort of slowly, it's kind of starts as kind of an offbeat office comedy, and slowly they come to realize that none of them can remember ever having been outside the office. They're like, wait, when did we get here? What are we actually doing here? And so it was very, it had a lot of the early DNA of what would eventually become Severance. Severance also, like, there were a couple things that went into it, but that play was definitely one of them. Yeah. And it was a very weird play. It had a minotaur. It had a guy digging a packing peanut out of his head. It had like more vomiting than you would expect. And so, I took it to the head of STP at the time, and I was like, is there possible I can get just like a little bit of money to put this up over in the Old Main Theater? And they gave, it was like...
It's $150.
Was it?
Yeah, I was the advisor of it the year for that time. That's what it was.
I couldn't remember, so I was gonna say it's like 1,000, but wow.
But he cast a brilliant co-student named Abe Mannion, who is a great director, and they took the $150 and created this show.
Yeah, that's the thing, is like, and that's part of what I love about this place is the sense of community and collaboration, because I had never directed anything before. I had no idea how it worked. I was like, how do you make a guy vomit on stage? And Abe was like, oh, you gotta get the sound effect and all that stuff. And so I was sort of shepherded through that process by people who were more experienced with it. And then yeah, we put it up, and I still very much remember that opening night. I'll remember that my whole life, because it was sort of a magical, we had no idea if anybody was gonna respond to this, if it was gonna be too weird or too gross or whatever. And people just reacted.
Yeah, it was weird, it was gross, it was hilarious, it was all those things.
Yeah. And so I very much fell in love with that feeling again, and had to. So basically then was like, how do I replicate this for the rest of my life?
Right. Yeah, so let's get to that. So then we remounted that, took that to a big theater festival, and that kind of like really became your play that you're standing on. And then you're like, well, now I'm ready to just go to LA and crush it.
Oh,
so
yeah.
you leave Western and you go to LA, and let's
And
track
I
that, and then we'll
immediately
go.
crushed it. Just
Or crushed. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I got to LA. It was sort of a cattywampus journey because I was down in LA. I moved down with 3 other guys, at least one of whom is here tonight. Nathan Cox, everybody.
Once a roommate, always a roommate, as
Yeah.
they say.
Yeah, no, we didn't just we were he and I in a bedroom together for about 6 months. It smelled so bad, but yeah, we moved down together. You know, all of them were pursuing acting and doing different things.
These are all Western.
all Western guys, yeah.
Yep.
And eventually I sort of got homesick and ended up coming back here and reconnected with the community up here a little bit for a while. And then eventually made my way to New York for grad school at NYU. And that would have been 2010.
And this is MFA in playwriting and screen and film and
It was-
TV, all.
Yeah, it's dramatic writing is the program. So it's film, theater, and TV. And I was like sure that I was going to do either film or theater, but while I was there, it was sort of like Breaking Bad was happening, and then like stuff like Parks and Rec and The Office on the comedy side. And it was just a really,
Like TV got really good.
it was
yeah.
a very, yeah, I was just like, there's so much good stuff happening there, and I just want to be in on it a bit. And so I focused on TV.
And you got this like shiny new degree from NYU, and you're like, now I'm going to go to LA and crush it.
Yeah.
And instantly take all the
For the
jobs.
second time,
And that's
I was
what
like,
happened.
I'm gonna crush it this
Yeah.
time. And I just walked around with my MFA, just waiting for, it was like, job.
Like, okay, you're in NYU, it's right here.
Yeah, it's right there, it's 3 letters. But they did not give me a job. The job I did get was working at a door factory in a little part of the valley, the San Fernando Valley called Pacoima, and it was a windowless office where I would go and like catalog door hinges and other parts, and it was just not very fun. But as I've said before, that it was there that I was walking into work one day and found myself being like, man, I would do anything in the world to not have to experience the next 8 hours and just be able to jump ahead to the end of it and have done the work and made the money but not had to actually experience it. And immediately it was just kind of like, there's a story there. Like there's a story there, there's a concept there. And so I spent the rest of the workday slacking off and just writing out ideas for this, and I got in trouble. And eventually I got fired. But
Thank God.
yeah. But that was the whole the whole genesis of the show, and I think about it all the time. Like if I had come to work 5 minutes later that day, or if I had not had that job, or whatever else had happened, like this things would have zigged instead of zagged, and might not be here with you right now.
Yeah. And so now you have this premise, and you're in LA, so you're like, and now I'm going to crush it.
I'm gonna crush it.
And you,
Finally.
then what happened?
Then 10 years went by, and
And I think this is important, right? Because where Dan is now, and especially for all of the artists in the room, like there's 10 years of just like grinding it and almost stopping. And so will you kind of tell us some of those times?
yeah, I mean there were a couple of times where I thought it was dead in the water, or I thought I was dead in the water, because I got to LA and I was already I think I was 20. I was like 28 by the time I got to LA the second time. And, at that age, it's like most of the people getting hired to be an assistant in a writer's room are, early 20s.
Yep.
And so it was like, I felt like in a way I was already past that point, and yet I was underqualified for those jobs. So I was like, I don't know if the math is going to add up on this. And I started asking the hard questions. I was like, okay, how long am I actually going to try this? How long before I pivot and try something else? And the good news is I still had a lot of really good friends from Western and from NYU down there. And so it's not like I was miserable. I was actually enjoying my life day to day for the most part. And so I was able to stick it out and eventually started to work. I had like a development job at a company called Super Deluxe for a while. And I was doing, no Super Deluxe fans? Wow. Wow. And it, but eventually it was like I had worked, I had that job, and then I had lost that job, and I was driving for Postmates again, and it felt like the tide was not going in the direction of me making it in this industry. And so there were definitely a couple times where I was like, it's been a good run, but it might be nearing its end.
Okay, so I want to drill down, if I can, just in that moment. It's kind of like that thing you said, if I would have not had my breakfast that day, that I got the premise for Severance. On those a couple of times, do you remember how when you're like on the brink of just like, shut it off, I've got to do something else, straight job, whatever, that you were able to keep another step forward? Like, what was it in those moments? Because again, I think that can be helpful for many of us when we're in that moment of doubt, to just be like, I've got to push a little more.
Yeah, I mean, part of it was the sort of the knowledge, the ever-present knowledge that I wasn't really good at anything else, and that and it really was. It was like, had there been an easy pivot, I might have done that. Like, had there been a very like intuitive, like, oh, I'm pretty good at this thing.
Totally.
I might have done that, but it was just that there was never anything where I actually felt like it was a more sensible turn, because I was like, this is the thing and if I try to do something like that, I might fail too, and this is the thing I love doing. Mm-hmm. But it was, a lot of times it was community, and it was friends that kept me in that, because I would meet up with people, again, many of them Western grads, and we would sit there and we would have a beer, we would have a coffee, and we knew that we were in this together, and so it never felt like I was alone.
Go Vikings. Yeah, and that's legit. And we still tell our students all the time, like, if you can do anything else besides theater, just please go do that. But if like you have to do this, then you got to do it. Yeah, it's for your soul.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so grinding, and then we're getting to the break. So then, how did Severance go from this thing that I have, that I just am needing someone to listen to me, to the door opened?
Well, I did have a manager who's still my manager today, out of NYU, and so he had been helping me first to sort of hone the script, and then he would take it around, and so it got brought to a couple of different places, and again, that's where you have those experiences where like somebody will, for a month or two, they'll be like, we're interested, and then they'll say, oh, thanks, but no thanks. And that's where you start to say, okay, well, maybe that's it. But there was a publication called The Blood List at the time, which is like the blacklist the script writing blacklist of unproduced screenplays. But it specifically is for horror and sci-fi. And so one of the people who had said no, nominated it for that, because they were like, it's not right for us, but somebody should make this. Nice. And so it got on this publication, and then like the week after that, I got a call from Red Hour, which is Ben Stiller's company, and they said Ben wants to meet to talk about Severance, which I assumed was a prank.
That is a good assumption.
I was like, Nathan Cox, is this you?
Allison Lors, your voice is so deep. Well, let's talk about, tell us about that day. What was it like to meet Ben Stiller for the first time, and how did the pitch go? And
it was really weird. I did drive for Postmates the day, like the morning of, because I needed money, and so I was like, I'll drive.
I need gas money, so I'm gonna drive.
Yeah, I was like, I'll do like 2 hours of Postmates, and then I'll go take a shower, and then I'll go get ready for the Ben Stiller meeting, and showed up, and it was his office at the time in LA had like a spiral staircase going down to like a basement area. So I walked down the staircase, and he was standing there like Hannibal Lecter, just kind of like waiting for me. And I had never met a famous person really at all before. So I'm just like, oh, it's just the two of us, shit. But then he couldn't have been nicer. What was amazing to me is immediately, I felt immediately that I was wasting his time and that I should just talk as fast as I can so he can go on to his next thing.
Yeah.
But immediately he was like, I noticed this line, like, what's that? Are you alluding to something else that's gonna happen? And he was incredibly thoughtful about it and had put a lot of work into understanding the script and was very curious about it.
So going back to like Abe, that connection to a director, that like trust was pretty quick, yeah?
It was similar. It was similar in a lot of ways, actually, yeah, because it was like he was taking all of this experience that he had and asking the right questions that needed to be asked. And for the most part, I could answer them, but then there were a couple of things where I was like, I don't know. And he was like, okay, we'll figure that out together. So it's good.
And so was this greenlit right away, or was there a process when you're waiting and to say yes and no and maybe, blah, blah, blah?
Yeah, no, that's where sort of the 10 years of it comes into play. I mean, it wasn't, it was a couple of years between that and when we actually rolled cameras.
Yep.
And that was because, at first we had to find we first had to get the script and the series plan to a place that we were all happy with it, where Ben and I and everybody liked it. And then we had to go out and try to find a distributor. And, so we were, looking at Amazon and all these other corporations. And at some point somebody was like, hey, apparently Apple is trying to make shows now. And it was like, okay, is that a real thing?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, let's try it.
So when did you get to quit your Postmates job?
Oh, I'm still there.
Oh, I thought so. In fact, my order this morning was a little messed up, so
I know.
We'll deal with that later.
I'll make that right.
I appreciate that.
I'm sorry. No, it was pretty shortly after, although it wasn't immediately after, because I will say it wasn't until we sold it to Apple that I started making money.
Yeah.
And that's an unfortunate thing that you guys might find, if you go down a similar path, is that the industry is sort of designed for people who are already rich and who already have some success. And so I was working basically full time on the script to develop it in the hopes of selling it to a distributor.
And you still got to pay rent.
Yeah, and you still got to pay rent. And so, I was doing Postmates still for a while. I was doing other stuff for a while, working on that with Ben and with Red Hour. And that's just sort of the nature of it. That's how it works. But fortunately, I was able to, keep it going long enough that we were able to sell it.
Amazing. So we're in the time now where we're just going to go deep into some Severance stuff, and then we'll do some questions. So it's greenlit, you go through the process, you're there first day on set, rolling camera, and you haven't done this before, you haven't been the head writer, been the guy. Mm-hmm. So what was it like walking onto the set, watching the actors, being involved with the casting and Ben, et cetera, that first shooting period?
Yeah, it was terrifying and remains terrifying to this day, but especially at first because it's like you're walking into a situation where you are technically in charge, and yet I was, without question, the least experienced person on that set. Everybody else had been on multiple TV show or film sets before. Yeah. And this was true in the writer's room too, by the way. Before that, as we were writing, I was in charge of all these people who've been doing this for 20 years. And I'm just trying to not make a total fool of myself.
Did you select people for the writer's room? Was that a collaboration with you and Ben? And again, maybe just for everyone in the room, what is the showrunner, head writer, can you kind of describe that?
Yeah, I mean, in my case, because I was not experienced, they paired me with a guy named Chris Black, who was really good, who had run multiple shows before. And so he was an incredibly generous collaborator who he came in and was like, this is your show. I want to help you put what is in your head and in your heart onto the screen, and I'll do everything I can to use my experience to get it there.
Great.
And he was true to that. And so he ran the first season room with me. But then, moving in, it was I didn't immediately just become the showrunner in effect, because I was like, I don't even know the words. Like, I don't know the terms for what everything is.
Do I just run around the show? Is that what that means?
Yeah, and so I was paired with different people for those first, really for the first 2 seasons. There was a lot of me working with people who had a lot more experience, but it was, I mean, it's crazy because you're in there with, the first thing we ever shot was Adam Scott lying on his couch in the house. And I just remember like the first time Ben said action, and I was just like, this is something that I wrote, it was on a page, and I'm sitting here physically watching it happen with an actor that I have loved for years, and it was the most surreal thing. It's the most surreal thing I could imagine until today, actually. This is up there.
And then it's like, we should add Christopher Walken, you know what I mean? And then it just rolls. So will you talk a little bit about that in terms of like, again, you must have just been like, who's auditioning? What's happening?
No, literally, so John Turturro had been cast, and he just like very kind of casually at one point is like, hey, for this character Bert, what do you think about Chris Walken? And I'm just like trying to be chill. I'm like, yeah.
Actually, you're like,
Like, I was like, if Pacino says no, yeah. No, that was again, yeah. That was one of the more insane moments. Even just hearing that he had read the script and was thinking about it, you just never expect something like that to happen.
Let's unpack that because I was walking today. I'm like, this is a big day, Brown. Good day for a farm kid from Iowa. And you're like, I'm a kid from Ole, right?
Yeah.
And here I am. So Ben Stiller's the first famous person you meet, and suddenly, I mean, you're kind of surrounded by famous people.
Yes.
How do you deal with that? What is that like?
I mean, you really do just have to try to shut off the intimidation. And the good news is that I was surrounded by like, there are people that you hear who get very famous, and then they can be mean or they can be intimidating, and we really don't have that on our set. Like Patricia Arquette is the nicest person on the planet. She's so nice, and like would like sit down and have long conversations with me about like anxiety and how to deal with it and all that stuff, and just like, put yourself first, and so I think I got the good version of that experience. But it was, you're there with people that you've admired since you were a kid, and so you're just trying not to screw up.
And it's a demanding schedule, right? The shooting and the rewrites and this and that and the editing. So how are you like managing that workload? I mean, you don't have Postmates anymore, but how are you like dealing with going from episode to episode? Just let's talk through the first season, then we'll get to the second season. So
yeah, I mean, the truth is, I order a lot of Postmates now, and that's part of. I don't cook. It's really tough, and our show, as the internet likes to remind me, it took 3 years to make our second season.
But there was a writer's strike. There was
a writer's strike for some of it.
Yeah.
It is also it is a show that is very meticulously put together, and we try to make the story, as intricate as we can, and then smooth it over and try to make it look simple. Like try to hide the fact that we have so many moving pieces happening, and make each episode just work really well as its own experience, and also as a building block into the next thing. And it took a very long time, and there were a lot of rewrites, and including like up to the point that we would shoot. There's a picture of me that I think has made its way online at the goat department, where I'm sitting at Gwendolyn Christie's desk there, and I'm just like typing furiously, and it looks kind of staged, but that was because like I was like literally having a panic attack in that photo, because they were like, they had done the reading in the morning, and the actors were like, I don't think it was like, none of this scene is working. We basically need to rewrite the whole scene before we shoot in 2 hours.
2 hours, yeah.
And so I was sitting there just like, what the hell is this? I have no idea how to make this work. And there was a lot of that. And then at the same time, you're like starting to try to, they're telling you like, well, you need to start conceiving the next season now. Like you need to start thinking about the next thing.
Yeah.
So it's often just a thousand things that you're juggling at once. And I'm not a good multitasker.
Yeah.
So it was a challenge.
None of us are. We think we are, but we're not. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, you're literally like script doctoring your own script.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it.
Yeah, yikes. Well, that's a good question. In terms of when you wrote that first season, did you already be like, and here's a clear end, oh crap, now we're going to restart? Or did you already have like, okay, if this gets renewed, right, I've already got some ideas of the story arc to continue on, blah, blah.
Yeah, when we first sold the show, I had a pitch for the ultimate shape of it, like the whole thing, like where it goes, where it ends.
Yeah.
And that, for the most part, we've remained true to. It's the sort of overall shape of what the show is going to be by the time it's over and you're looking at it in totality. It's more or less the same. But in terms of like episode to episode, season to season, yeah, it's constantly you're like, well, as long as we have the scene, with the jackalope, it's going to be totally fine. Like the jackalope is the center of the whole thing, and then they come and they're like, we're not doing the jackalope anymore. Yeah. And I'm like, we can't lose the jackalope. Damn it. Yeah.
So you get to the end of that first season, and I imagine you're just like on cloud 9, be like, holy cow, my life is nuts now. And then let's talk a little bit about that 3 years, and then we'll like walk through the second season. So instantly the pressure's on. I imagine people are like, we need this, we need that. So how do you kind of negotiate that in terms of like continuing the arc and trying to like break up the episodes and get that whole second season script moving forward?
It was way harder. The second season was way harder because also it's like the first season there is no model for what this thing is supposed to be.
It's like your sophomore album in a way.
Yeah, exactly. And the second season it's like, well, I don't even know what I did right the first time. Like I'm not sure I get the show. And so how do I try to replicate that? And that's where you find yourself in that headspace that is incredibly damaging, I think, for anybody trying to make art or anything creative, which is you get in the headspace of trying not to screw up and trying not to make a mistake because you don't want. I immediately start thinking about, Reddit or whomever else being like, oh, this guy was a phony. This guy got lucky one time, but he actually didn't know what he was doing.
Yep.
And that can be the guiding voice in your process if you let it. And so I just had to try to be like, we did this once. I think we can do it again. I'm going to try to get back to the headspace when I was just like living in a small apartment, driving for Postmates, and writing this
smelly
primarily.
roommates.
What was that?
Smelly roommates.
Smelly roommates.
Yeah.
I would call Nathan and I would be like, can you just send me like a shirt of yours that I can just every talk needs a theme, it's important.
We just did callback right there. It says like callback. Improv 101.
Yeah. Yes, and. But it is about trying to get back to that headspace where you were trying to make something cool. The idea of screwing up wasn't even really part of it because there's nothing to screw up.
Right.
And so that's what I try to get back to.
Or that second season, the ultimate fear or that ultimate trap to fall into of like, I'm going to write so people like it. And kind of writing from that perspective instead of just letting your originality, your uniqueness like shine through.
Yeah. But it is also, I think a mystery show, as anybody who, I've spoken to some people who were creatives on Lost, and they can tell you, it gets harder because it's very easy to pose interesting questions. It is harder to provide interesting answers, and especially satisfying answers, and then to not get lost in the minutia of that, where suddenly it just feels like you're doing homework. It's like you still want that sense of wonder. And so it does get harder as you get further into it, but at the same time you get more experienced, and so you hope that you can grow with it.
Yeah, that questions answer thing is a really interesting way to think about that. what were some of the challenges in season 2 specifically that you faced in terms of like trying to continue this like big arc storyline and set yourself up for? We're not talking about season 3 at all, so don't even go there.
Yeah.
Don't even go there. But like in season 2, if you know, and you know, hopefully more than just 3, 4, 5. How do you like balance that of tell this clear part of the story and drop those breadcrumbs for the next season?
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing that's hard is that we sort of intentionally broke the formula at the end of season 1 by having the innies go and be able to deliver this message to the outside and do something that no one has been able to do before. And so the question is like, well, then how do you move the story forward, but also sort of go back to the thing people love about the show, loved about it initially, which is like these 4 characters in a room together, sitting there, you know, with the cubicle going up and down and just existing together. And how do you not make it all about the conflict now, and leave it where there's room to breathe and room for the characters to just exist organically. And yeah, you know, there were things that we did to get there, but it was hard.
In terms of that, the storytelling, how do you think about balancing inner world and outer world? Do you think about that at all, or is that not even in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, like the innie world is easier in a way because that is the thing that is much more specific to this show. It's like they're
like a unique world.
A unique world that has all these rules that we've come up with together and that we've been able to build over time. The outer world is interesting because we always said we wanted to have a sense that even if you're not in Lumen, you're in Lumen. Like they going back like to the fact that like a lot of the businesses in the town have names that if you're paying attention, they're names of the CEOs from the past of Lumen. And just this sense that like you're never quite sure that you're actually out of the belly of the beast.
Yeah.
And there's always a sense that somebody might be watching.
It's like that feeling of the company town, the company store.
Yeah. And you know, there's stuff like, you know, at one point I remember like walking, just in a meeting with Ben, he was like, I don't want any new cars. Like I don't want any cars after, you know, the 80s. And I was like, well, why is that? Like the show is set in contemporary times, you know, but it's a tonal thing. It's just it's a feeling that this show exists in just a
just taking the world and just turning it,
slightly skewed reality that where you don't feel like you could just like walk out of the town of Keter and walk into like Times Square. You know, it's a little bit in its own dimension.
We'll do a little more and then we'll start coming to you for questions. But one I have is you talked a little bit about working with Ben, you know, the director, but also can you talk to us a little bit about, as the writer, what it was like seeing these seeing these actors kind of take on these characters and how that like collaboration and relationship happened between you and some of the actors in terms of the character growth and development, if that happened.
Oh, it absolutely did. I mean, I always, it's like every time that you cast a character, you learn something about that character where you're like, oh, I didn't know that Helly had that cadence when she spoke, and now I know that, and that helps me to write for her. You know, Zach Cherry is to me he's the funniest guy on the planet because he's just so that character. I wrote that character as being kind of like a twitchy, like, hey man, listen, what's up? Like, I got like energy. And then Zach Cherry comes in and he's the most chill human being on the planet.
Like rooted, grounded.
And he's saying the lines that were intended to sound like they were coming from like a coked out guy, but he's saying them just so chill. And I immediately just started cackling, and I was like, I didn't realize that was Dylan, that's who Dylan was, and now I know who Dylan is. And
then that alters your writing.
Yeah,
you're right.
Absolutely. And you know, the character Milchik was, I originally sort of saw him as like, he was like a quarterback, like he was sort of like Kronk from The Emperor's New Groove. You know, he was the yeah, he was this kind of like good-natured sidekick to the villain. And then you know, once those words were in Tramell Tillman's mouth,
Yeah.
it was like, oh no, there's something much deeper going on here. Like there's something much scarier going on with this character than I had any idea of. And that absolutely changed the trajectory of the show. You know, that the show
like the character line, like
yeah, absolutely. I mean, because once you're given a gift like that, you have to use it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Which again, it goes back to like the days of Dead Parrot Society. It's all about yes-anding, getting what you got, collaborating, and building off of each other, collaborating.
Yeah, I was saying this before too, just like the world building. Like when I was in DPS, we used to do this. There was the thing called Behind the Improv.
A short form game.
It was a short. We would do short form games, and then we would cut backstage to all of us and have like a soap opera going on behind us. And at some point we started making up rooms that were in the back of the theater. It's like, well, yeah, this is the DPS champagne room where we all sit. And over the course of like 2 years of doing this, we just built out this world of this like backstage place. And that was actually incredibly educational for me. Because it was like, yeah, something will happen. There will be like a mistake someone makes, and suddenly you're like, no, that's something. And now I know more about this world, and it's more fun.
And not only can you build your own world, but it doesn't have to do anything with this world. It can be a whole new world that's just coming out of your creativity.
Yeah, whole new world. It's like Aladdin.
It is. It comes back to either Dead Parrot Society or Aladdin. Pretty much.
Those are the two. Those are the pillars of my development, really.
Of cultural society, pretty much everything.
Yeah,
I agree 100. Should we take some audience questions? Yeah. Okay, so this is how we're going to do this. Because we have this nice, beautiful, huge crowd. I'm going to popcorn around and just ask a few questions and kind of get a number. And please be nice and loud, because I'm not going to run around with the mic because I get sweaty. So be nice and loud so everyone can hear them. And Dan's going to hear like 5, 7, 10 questions, and then they might like have a thematic connection, or he might just hear one that he really wants to respond to, and that's how we're going to go. So now raise your hands, and I'm just going to call some out. Here in the curly hair, that guy his name is Will Eames.
Yeah.
Will.
I was curious about your insight about the state of the film television industry in Los Angeles.
Ooh. Great, so there's one. This person with the glasses right here, I don't know.
So in the writer's room, do you have like the entire server floor and all the departments mapped out?
Okay, here in the hat, you had your hand raised, hat?
What's your thought process when creating a new character? Is it more about what will serve the story, or just like this would be an interesting place in the state?
Let's honor the balcony there with the big hand waving at me.
What is the process for working with the production and visual design side of things?
And then let's go. Oops, I just saw a hand up there. Oh, hi, TJ.
Like during those 10 years of grind, were you just spending that time refining Severance, or did you have any other ideas of what to do with those?
Kind of feel like we got a gist of some things to talk about.
Yeah. Although now I feel bad. I'm like, I want to.
I know.
I want to answer all those questions. I was refining Severance that entire time, but again, there would be a while where it would seem like things were stalling on it. You know, like there was a big production company that said no, and so I put it away and I didn't look at it for maybe 2 or 3 months. I wrote a couple of features during that time, a couple of feature film scripts. I wrote another pilot with a friend of mine that we're still looking to hopefully get made someday. So I would pivot to other stuff. That all changed as soon as Apple picked it up, and since then it's basically been all Severance all the time. To your question, I think I can't pretend it's not a very strange and somewhat terrifying time to be going into the industry. You know, for one thing, because we seem to, gone a little bit merger crazy, and all of these companies, I was working at the Paramount lot on season 3. That was where our writer's room was. when they wiped out the logo on the water tower, and it became the Skydance Paramount lot. And that's a reality of the industry right now. Like big companies are buying smaller companies, and a couple of people are getting richer and richer. And the fear, my fear, is that it's gonna land us in a place where there is not a home for a diverse array of new works and new voices, and that's something that I think we all have to be conscious of and try to fight together.
And if you haven't heard, it's not just Dan's fear, it's also Elizabeth Warren's fear. So there's a great clip online of Elizabeth Warren saying, we wouldn't have Severance and these great creative ideas if we continue down this road.
Yeah. Speaking of surreal moments, that was one.
When I was watching that,
That was one
it was
too.
a surreal moment for me knowing you'd be like, is she talking? And she said your name. She's like, she just said Dan's name.
It took me all day to be like, to understand that wasn't AI. I thought that was AI. I just assumed.
Oh my God, wouldn't that be ironic?
Yeah,
if that was
yeah.
AI?
But speaking of, that's another
Yes.
thing right now that we're all having to contend with, and I think I was saying earlier, like the best thing more than ever right now, what we need is people who are willing to break the algorithm and write something that doesn't make sense from any perspective of like how things have been done in the past. Like people who are gonna say like there is no pattern to prove that this idea is gonna work, but I'm just gonna trust my own instinct and I'm gonna go on faith and I'm gonna make something that is new and exciting. That's always been important. We've always needed those people, but now that it's literally an algorithm, I think that's the only thing that's gonna save us.
And keep a forward momentum and progression. How about production? That's a great question. Like that question about like interacting as a writer with the production design teams.
It's so great. I mean, it's so exciting. It's similar to what I said with the actors, where sometimes you don't know what something is until you see it. And like for example, the Christopher Walken's department, where like they go back and you see this like big white room, is nothing like what I envisioned. Like the thing I had in my head was very, very different. And when they first brought me, they bring you concept art for these things that they generate, and they put it. And like honestly, my first reaction was like, oh no, it's not like that. And I had to sort of check myself and be like, well, maybe it is like that.
Nice.
Like,
Yes,
like,
and.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was there? I feel.
No, that's good. We'll get some more questions here. People have also been texting me questions all week. So here's one that's off the top head from a text. What is the most Lumen-like thing from your real life?
Oh dear.
That's a pretty good one, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I worked at a company one time where the company was failing, and so they sent this guy. They spent millions of dollars. It was a global company. This guy from the national office came around to every office, and he presented this thing that was going to save the company. Which, ironically, given where we are, it was the 8 Viking principles. And because the guy was apparently, this executive was really into Vikings, and so he was like, we went on like he showed us a bunch of pictures from this tropical retreat they'd gone on to come up with the Viking principles.
Oh my God.
And they were like, plan the raid, everybody row. Prepare for the fight. It was that
The
stuff.
hats need 2 horns.
Yeah, 2 horns per hat. But it was stuff like that, and I'm like, how much money did you spend to go to like Guadalajara and do this? And the funny thing was, the best part was they showed us the slideshow of them on the beach, like, and then the last slide just said, "You are here." And the guy turns and he goes, "This is the most important slide. Because the whole time we were there, you were with us."
And then he turns to the CEO who hired him. It's like, that'll be $5 million.
$5 million right now. And no, you can't have a new copy machine.
Oh my God. now we know what season 4 is going to be about.
Yes.
Okay. Let's pop up some more questions. You in the mask? Big and loud.
Is there any reason that the seventh floor resembles the way it's in the Miller Hall?
Okay. You in the blonde curly hair here? Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Careful, careful. You up there with the black.
Hi, I have a friend who would like to know how the the psychological concept of dissociation maybe some good sort of influence of giving a Severance in the show.
Great. And here with the curly hair. Yep. Oh, sorry, it's bright lights.
Ooh.
The play convention, you mean? Okay, good question. And one more here in the white.
My question is about casting. As a writer, do you ever get to say casting, or is that something that you use for
Right.
All right, let's talk some.
Okay, Miller Hall, yes. I was
Done.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks. But there's also there is a computer lab in the basement of Arnson Hall where I wrote a lot of the play of convention. And that's I don't know if you guys know, there's a place where you can walk underground to get over to, was it like the Earth Science Building or the?
Oh yeah.
And you go, and I discovered that one night at like 1 a.m. I was walking around, and suddenly I was like, what are all these tubes? What are the pipes? And so it was that was very inspiring of kind of the vibe of it. But yeah, being in like a weird white maze and then suddenly in a weird new room that makes no sense. Yeah, very Western.
I just had a moment where we got like 8 questions and you go, yes, and we move on to the next.
Right.
How about the convention? Speaking of convention, any chance that would be produced again?
I would love it. I mean, there's like a couple of things that like I'm like George Lucas. I want to go back and fix it, you know.
You are exactly like George Lucas. Now that you say that, every time I think of you, I think of George.
Yeah,
Lucas.
yeah. I feel like I'm slowly morphing into George Lucas over time. Yeah, I would love to do it again. I see no reason not to. Yeah, Apple. Easy. Here's what I'll say. A lot of what we're doing is speaking what I hope is truth about any company of that size. The people that I have spoken, that I work with, which are specifically in the TV division of the company, have been very good about giving us the freedom that we have to make the statements that we want, irrespective of how they think it might reflect on the company. And so that, we've been lucky in that way. That would be most of what I would say about that.
Yeah, great. Anything else from that set of questions that's landing for you right now?
It's a lot of questions. Can we do like fewer?
Sure, I do that.
In between?
Yeah, it's like the phone number thing.
Casting.
Yeah.
Casting was a little bit, yeah. Like we have a casting director. There are times when I have suggested an actor and they've gone to that person. I woke up when we were talking about who was going to be the voice of the Lumen building in season 2. I woke up at 2 a.m. at one point and just wrote down Keanu Reeves and then went back to bed. And then the next day I went and actually the casting director had already put his name on a list, and I was like, it's him. It's got to be him. But it's a group process. We all weigh in.
Yeah. Mostly you and Ben are doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, although it's again our casting director is
Right.
Rachel Tenner, and she's a genius, and so she has as much to do with it as we do.
Right. Okay, let's get 3. How about 3?
Yeah, let's
Feel
do
good?
3.
Okay. Right here in the front row, because you're in the front row.
So I'm a studio art major, and one of my favorite parts of the show is all the paintings. And I'm just curious, like, how much say you on all those tiny details that you like?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Paintings, details on paintings. Faye.
What part of the writing process brings you the most joy?
Okay, and right here, curly hair that 3 people are pointing to say, pick this person.
So now that you're inspiring, I know you're been a writing artist, I want to know what and who your biggest media inspirations were and what your favorite movie was.
Ooh, okay.
Okay, that's a good one.
Let's go with that.
That's a good one.
Let's start there.
Okay. Wait, what was the first question? Paintings. Quite a bit, actually. Like that's a nice thing. Like I've always been able to like the Kier pardons his betrayers, which is the one you see in season 2. Like that, I pretty much wrote out everything that was in that, and because a lot of it is like I have these big documents of like hundreds of pages of lore that like only I know, and the paintings are often the only way to get that stuff out, like onto the show. And so I'll be like, yeah, like people don't know that you know Kier did this random thing when he was 42, and so we'll put that in the painting, yeah. And that part, actually, the world building of it, this is a good segue, is probably the most fun part for me. Like I would be very happy to just, you know, spend all my time thinking about like the entire lineage of the Egan family, and also just like writing Rickon's book, because that's fun. Like creating the background color it's lower pressure, and it feels sometimes more like a more raw creativity to it.
Yeah.
Because it's not, you know, it's not stuff where you have to hit a target necessarily. It's like it can just be whatever you want. And then yeah, so let's see, I'm trying to think
Inspiration, yeah.
Yeah, the posters that I have on my office wall. There's like there's a couple of Charlie Kaufman's. There's Being John Malkovich, and there's Eternal Sunshine certainly had an impact. There's a movie called Dark City that I really loved when I was younger. Yeah, I still love it. And then you know stuff like you know on stage like Waiting for Godot, all that. Anything like that where there's sort of this you know a mix of comedy and some existential dread is always really fun. There is a if you just Google Sizzler commercial 90s. You'll see there's like a weird internal video that they made for Sizzler employees to like get them jazzed about working for Sizzler, and it's like 15 minutes long, and that so much Lumen shit came from that. I will say. So those are the main ones. Those are the big ones.
Now that's research. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you brought it up. So, is there a piece of that lore that's deep that you do all this background writing for all these characters and storyline and plot that you want to share with us? Like, what's something that hasn't ever come out in any show, but it's like this is an important part of this character or of the overall story?
Oh God.
And all of your back writing.
Oh God, that's interesting. Yeah.
If you want to think about it, I can get some more questions, but if you got one.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. I'm trying to find the line of what I can say without also getting in trouble.
Of course. Nothing that goes out. I mean, just your backstory, you know, that no one ever knows about, kind of thing.
I will say, and this is canon, I've said this before, but Kier Egan is short for Kieran Culkin Egan. That's his full name. It's true.
Perfect. Let's get a few more. You, because you're in the front row.
Hi, I'm also from Olympia, and
Hey.
also graduated from Western.
Big and loud. From Olympia, also graduated from Western.
I'm wondering what advice you would give for actors or anyone in the film industry wanting to get noticed or get management and representation when they're from a town that doesn't have a lot of that around them.
Great. Actors getting represented. Big curly hair right there with a big hand going like that. Nice and loud.
So, like, during the process of like writing and coming up with like roles and stuff, how do you go from say having like two like baseline characters or like plot lines and stuff and having like a grand vision, and what's like the best process to sort of like create a bridge from one side, you know?
Okay, characters, a plot line, and then finish right here. Ivan.
The characters that are out on set, you mentioned some stuff.
What characters in Severance does Dan relate to the most?
Well, let me start there. Sadly enough, Rickon is definitely one. I know very well the feeling. One of my favorite scenes actually in season 1 is the scene in the finale where they go out onto the porch and Rickon is like pacing and he's like, I sound like an idiot out there. Like, because it's the first time that you've sort of seen behind the mask for a second with him and seen he has this persona that he's created and is this sort of pompous, obnoxious intellectual. But it was the first moment that you realize, like, he can hear, when he says something dumb, he can hear it too. And that's a feeling I know very well is, I promise you, however the rest of this goes, I'm gonna walk off stage and be like, sounded like an idiot at that one question. And that sort of self-doubt is something that I can definitely relate to. Of the innies, I don't know, I like to think Helly because I like to think that I'm somebody who will call out BS when I see it. That might be more aspirational than real, to be honest. But yeah, in terms of like, you seem to be asked, it's sort of like how do kind of the pieces come together, right? In terms of like, you've got characters, you've got these storylines, you have these sort of disparate things that you know are cool. At what point does it become a cake? Like, at what point does it become like, oh, this is no longer just ingredients? It doesn't, there's not a moment where it happens, it's very gradual. And I'll say especially like each season, I compare each season to the previous season, which is already done. And that's a pretty toxic way to think about it because you're sitting there and you're looking at a mess in front of you. You really are looking at a mess. You're like, I know I want Irving to do this, but I have no idea how it's gonna happen. And it just is a matter of being extremely patient and looking problem by problem, and then all of a sudden, before you know it, there's a structure. I also, just for me, just in terms of like, if you guys are, if any of you are TV writers, I was not into like note carding or anything at first. Like I would see like people would put like an episode character grid with all of these note cards where it's like, this tracks Mark's arc, this tracks Helly's arc. That scared the crap out of me when I first started. And now I love grids. Like, I'm so into grids now because it is like, I would say that's probably the best way to get yourself to that point where suddenly you have a cake.
You've got to have that structure that creates the bones, the skeleton, and then you put the muscle, fat.
Exactly. It's a skeleton, and once that's sound and you feel like you could kick it and it won't fall over, that's where you can start to really have more fun with it.
Great. And how about aspiring actors specifically from Olympia? So just aspiring.
Well, I only cast out of Olympia personally, so yeah.
So well done on being born
You're
there.
in the right place. My good friend Allison Lures said something earlier today that really stuck with me, which is that a lot of times it's not about if you get if you're auditioning, for example, for like a sheriff, and you immediately put on like a tough voice and you're kind of shifty-eyed, like looking around the town for all the no good nicks. That's not how sheriffs talk. Like a lot of times, sheriffs can be very reserved and quiet. Yeah. And for the most part, it's people who are bringing something organic and personal to themselves, as opposed to and maybe playing against expectation. If for no other reason than just because you know that if you are sending in, especially like a self-tape, the people looking at this will have seen at least 50 tapes over the course of the day, and they're going to be looking for someone who didn't go with that first impulse and tried something a little different. And even if it doesn't end up being right for the part, it's like they might remember you later. They might be like, oh yeah, that was the sheriff with the really high tinny voice. Yeah. I like that sheriff.
Well, it's something we tell our students all the time too, is like, you trust your own uniqueness. Like, you are the only unique one who can do that. And there's a callback to that in terms of how you're talking about, I wrote this character like this, and then this actor came in and read it like this, and totally changed your perception of that character.
Well, and that's the thing, is like, I have no doubt that Zach Cherry auditioned for a million things where he just sort of did his Zach Cherry thing and it wasn't right for the role, but it just takes one.
Yeah, no doubt. Let's get a few more questions. I feel like I'm working that part of the room, so I'm going to come to here. Yes?
What made you decide to put so many love stories in your sci-fi horror?
Ooh, love stories. And I haven't got the back, so you've got a big hand, but you're dark. I can't see anything else. Yeah?
In the show, there's a lot of like really unique words that I learned personally just from watching. Where did all those fun words come from?
Words, and then one from the balcony.
You mentioned working in a room with people with more experience than you. Have you struggled with a sense of imposter syndrome? And you got advice for artists that feel the same?
Oh, that was MJ. Okay.
Yes.
Go.
Yes. Okay. Words. They did an Honest Trailers of Severance at one point. I don't know if you guys know Honest Trailers. It's like they make fun of a thing, basically, by giving like the honest version of the trailer. And one of the lines they had was, they were like, is this show actually smart, or do they just have a thesaurus? And the answer is, we just have a thesaurus. For me, I used to use thesaurus.com, but Merriam-Webster.com, the thesaurus setting, actually has a lot more options, and that is always open on my computer.
That's a deep tip right there. That's a great tip.
Yeah. And it's something that I didn't say at first because I was ashamed, but now I just lean into it. I'm like, I don't. My vocabulary is nowhere near as good as the show's vocabulary.
Use the tools, right?
Yeah.
Use the tools.
Yeah. Okay, what was this one? This was.
What made you decide to put so many love stories?
Oh, there.
Yes. I will say.
Look at this guy's heart. He's a big softie.
I'm a big little softie. I will say that I did not originally intend. Can I say this? Yeah, I can say this. I did not originally. I did not intend Mark and Helly to have a romance. I was intending them to just. I actually like really solid platonic friendships depicted on screen, especially between like a man and a woman who your expectation might be for them to fall in love. But it was pretty early in the development process that we decided to change it. And really it was, I think at the crux of your question kind of is why put something like that in what could be so cold and clinical and kind of scary of a sci-fi concept. And it's the same reason that, Irving and Dylan are not a romantic pair, but their love is as important to the show as any of the mystery elements.
That's the best. It's the sweetest thing.
Yeah, and just how protective Dylan is over his friend. But then also, when Irving falls in love, and these characters are in a sense children, experientially. They've never had, most of them have never had a romance before, and that is such a formative thing. You learn so much about yourself the first time that you fall in love, and so it was about keep making sure that there was a warm beating heart at the center of this messed up, disturbing, dystopian universe. We wanted to make sure that there was something really alive at the middle of it, and I think that the answer to that, be it romantic or platonic, is love.
And then working with more experienced people?
It is the imposter syndrome doesn't go away and it doesn't get less, it just changes. I am fortunate now to be, on the third time doing this, where I know I do have a little bit more faith in myself, and there are times where I'll struggle to speak up, or I'll be embarrassed to present an idea, and I'll have to talk myself. I'll be like, "You're Dan Erickson, damn it!" say the thing, and then I'll say it and it won't go over well, and then I'll spiral. But but it's something that you really do have to push through. Again, I quoted Brian Willis earlier as saying, it's important not to lose your arrogance too early. And I, in that case, what the word arrogance I take to mean sort of audacity, the audacity to really believe that you have something to say that is worth hearing, and that you belong here, and that as scared as you are, that if you're not going to put this out into the world, it will never go out into the world, and that's a tragedy. So you have to be willing to be brave enough and audacious enough to just say, I'm as good as anyone here, and I'm going to act like it.
Nice. And I'm going to add my voice to the cultural conversation.
Exactly.
I'm going to start moving us towards wrapping up here, so we're done with questions from the audience. But Dan, I've got a few things for us to talk about to end here. One, what you just said about you learn something about yourself the first time you fall in love. So what did you learn about yourself the first time you fell in love?
Well, I've never dated, Rich.
Okay.
No, you do. You're seeing yourself from another person's perspective in a way that at least for me, I never had outside of a loving relationship like that.
And what did you learn? You think about that. You can answer that.
I might have to think about that
Fair.
a while, yeah.
Okay, then a couple more things. What do you see in terms of future? So where do you go from here?
One thing that people ask a lot is sort of like, are you working on anything else? And the answer right now is no. Severance really is a full-time job in every sense of the word. And like when I'm done working on this show for the day, I'm usually just like passing out in front of the TV. And there is it's not just about time, it's about energy and bandwidth and the creative energy, the output. And so I am looking forward to, a future where I can sort of open up and look at other stuff. I'm very interested in features. Like I said earlier, I love TV. I'm so excited to be working in TV and like being able to build out something long form. But I also I grew up on, I think most of, when I was asked what the inspirations were, I think they were mostly film. And that is the world I sort of grew up in, and so I am excited to play in that sandbox too.
And then reflecting back to your time here at Western, what are some things that you learned here, your experience that you've just like brought with you that's kind of like built a foundation for where you are now today, if you can tie back into your experience here?
I think it really is about just not ever trying to, similar to the acting question, it's like you go into an audition, understand that like this is your audition, like this isn't you trying to make the same thing that 100 people have made. And I know that sounds obvious, but people so easily fall into the trap, especially when you're a young writer, when you're first starting out. It's like your first screenplay, all you really want is to write something that feels like a competent movie. Where you're like, oh my God, like this could actually be a movie.
Yeah.
And you have to get past that to the next stage, which is, okay, but there are tons of movies. We don't need just another movie.
Yeah.
We need something that has a whisper of madness to it. And if I am in fact going to be in this industry and be the one to do that, then I'm going to find that thing inside myself. Like, what is the thing that I like? And sometimes it might be something you're embarrassed about. Like sometimes it might be something where it's like, well, I don't know. I always there's some weird like thing that I'm into or obsession that I have, and no, there's no way anyone would want to see a movie about that or a play about that. They do. There are people out there that want to see a play about the weird thing that you've been embarrassed about for years, I promise.
I mean, basically what you're saying is, what we say all the time, that you learned here is like, trust your instincts, trust your impulses,
Yeah.
trust yourself, trust your voice.
Absolutely, and I do think, that was why I wanted to come to Western, that's why I transferred here, was, everything that I saw about the artistic community, not just of Western, but of Bellingham, is that there is just this, that there's a little bit more room for people to explore those weirder, darker corners and do so in kind of a safe environment and foster that specific voice.
We are the city of subdued excitement.
So they say.
Okay, last one. What has today been like to come back here? 20 years, right? What has today been like for Dan Erickson?
20 years. It's really weird. It's so weird. I did go and I was like sitting and I was writing in the library earlier. Like I was sitting on the Sky Bridge thing.
Yeah.
And I was just, it hasn't changed.
Hold on for a second. Can you imagine all the people who just walked by and didn't know, like, Dan Erickson, they're like, some dude's doing his Canvas page assignment.
There were two people who said hi. I don't know, they're there. Yeah, hi. But yeah, no, it's so strange, and I do just have to say it's an incredibly humbling honor, because I was humbled when I got into this school, because to me I was like, this is the cool place. This is where the art that the kind of art that I like and the kind of creativity I like is happening. So the fact that I'm even allowed in this club is amazing. And to come back and be honored in this way is it's the most rewarding feeling that I've had in a very, very long time.
Y'all, Dan Erickson.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. You guys are amazing. Thank you, thank you.